Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's show. Today, I am really excited to have a good friend with me, and that is Chelsea Kent. Chelsea wears so many hats. She's exhausted. She's just getting over being sick, and I can't imagine why. I think her life's a tiny, tiny little bit overfilled. But Chelsea is the co-founder of Solutions Pet Products. We're going to talk about that. That's a new pet food company that has some really, really exciting products coming on board. She's co-owner of Parsley Pet, and she'll explain to us what that is. And also the owner of Heroes Pet, which is a pet store in Colorado, if I am correct. And I know that she is a huge, huge advocate for transparency in the pet food world. She has attended AFCO meetings with us. She's outspoken. She's brilliant when she is up against the forces that be. And we are so happy she's on our side. I don't think I'd want to be on her bad side. So Chelsea, thank you so much for agreeing to join me and talk about all these amazing projects that you have going on.
Thanks for inviting me. It's awesome.
So Heroes Pet, that was sort of the beginning of all this, correct?
Yeah, I actually had been in the industry a decent amount of time before that, but kind of trying to find my footing and see, where I wanted to focus my efforts. And in 2007, my mom and I actually opened Heroes Pets together. She does all the things that I don't want to do, and I do all the things that she doesn't want to do. So,
perfect match.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so nice. When I started Heroes Pets, really the intention was to focus on like eco-conscious, more holistic, validating claims, things like that. And ironically, like 90% of my favorite products didn't meet my own standards for what I was willing to sell. So it was pretty tough to get started because I really had to, identify what parameters were the most important and why, and find products that fit into those. So we didn't have a really big opening inventory. And then we opened just after the melamine recalls, but we opened just a couple months before the economy crashed. So it was kind of like a whirlwind of things that occurred all in the beginning. But over now 15 years, it's actually been really fascinating to see that, a lot of other retailers that I've talked to, they say that they're not really sure that they would feel confident if they were to restrict the number of things that they had available for people. Like they need to sell what they think will sell, the companies that have the best advertising. And in 15 years, I've kicked out about 50 companies. And the more companies I kick out, I swear, the more customers trust me and come to me. And I think it's just because they recognize that, we're not about the dollar. If anything, we're, what's the saying? Cutting off your own nose to spite your face.
Well, I think that people understand transparency, and I think people really appreciate that. And when you build up a clientele who comes to trust what you're telling them, then when you make changes in your lineup, when you say, that company made changes that we don't like, or that company did something ethically or morally, I mean, we do that as well. We will say, yeah, we made money with that, but that now does not meet the standard that, and no matter what that standard is, whether it's ethics, whether it's morals, whether it's product ingredients, product processing, how things are sold, I think that when you stick with your guns, your clientele becomes even more loyal. And I think that's why your store has survived starting at a bad time. I mean, starting with the melamine thing, that was actually kind of good, because if you were talking about feeding raw food and things that were not adulterated, you had an in, like, you weren't trying to sell people things that had just killed their pets. So that was a good thing. But starting at the time of the crash, I opened my second veterinary clinic in the fall of 2010. And interestingly, the crash was kind of in 2008. It didn't hit the veterinary industry till about a year later. So it was August of 2009. It was like somebody just pulled the plug. Nobody was coming in the door. We had open slots all over the place, and usually we were crazy busy. And I went into panic mode thinking, oh my gosh. But it took people about a year to really, and I think we're going through that a little bit right now. It takes people about a year to burn through their savings and realize how desperate things have become. And then it's like, oh, I can't afford to bring my pet in for that routine wellness exam. I can't afford to get their teeth cleaned. I can't afford to feed this level of food that I used to be feeding. So opening, in 2007, 2008 probably wasn't so bad, but, then by 2009, it was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But, I think by then you probably had enough following and loyalty that you managed to stick it out, which is great, because I know that so many businesses, so many veterinarians in the state of New Jersey went under in 2009, 2010. It kind of blew my mind how many kind of lost their footing. So good for you. So what came after the Heroes Pet? Was it Parsley Pet next or Solutions?
Well, actually, first, just a little fill in the gap there. So, I had been in the industry for a really long time and then added Heroes onto it. And I started to feel a little bit burned out. And so that's when I started going to the AFCO meetings and I have to get out of the box. And
I can't imagine that being a solution for being burned out, because man.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's so great because when you're selling products retail, it does open your world up so much to understand regulation and be able to take a deeper dive into the products that you're getting and understand better without what the reps are telling you and everything. So that opened a lot of doors for me, even just in regards to meeting other people like yourself. And that made me realize the value of validation. And so Parsley Pet is a company that I had helped them get started initially, and then they kind of went off on their own. And I was always so fascinated in their information. So to say what it is, it's a mineral and heavy metal uptake analysis. So it shows not what's circulating in your pet's blood for mineral and heavy metals, but what's actually gotten into their tissues. And for the years that it had been open, I was always asking the original owner, Matt, if I could see the data. What does this look like if a pet is eating kibble? What does it look like if they're eating raw food that's formulated? What if they're eating raw food that's not formulated and they're just throwing stuff together? What's happening? I want to be able to validate some of these things that I believe to potentially be true, but nobody really knows that. And it just kind of worked out that he had some other things come up in his life and was ready to sell it. And I was ready to jump in with both feet and learn some stuff and continue on with it. So me and Angela Robertson bought that together actually just last October. And so, of course, we still have lots of information coming in, and it's mind-blowing what kinds of things that you learn with it. But, being that it's still kind of new for us, so far the most fascinating thing for me has been the data analysis and being able to see specifically what is actually occurring in pets when they're eating different types of diets.
So when people submit a sample, you're asking them what they're feeding their pet?
Yeah. Yep,
and are you going so far as to ask them brands as far as whether it's kibble or raw or homemade?
Yes. And not everybody fills in the brand. I think sometimes they're potentially worried that it's going to skew the results or something. If I say this, they might say something different, which doesn't happen. So not everybody gives full information of what we asked for. But there have actually been a couple of brands that I've specifically been able to flag as having some poorly balanced minerals because you can see it when people list them.
And are you finding certain types of food or brands of food have more toxic minerals, for instance, more arsenic or more lead or mercury? Are you finding differences there?
No, with the heavy metals, it is generally more environmental. And then there are occasional batches, I believe, of foods that use the synthetic vitamins and minerals. If you look in the AFCO book, there's actually a page that specifically shows the expected heavy metal contamination on each individual mineral. And selenium is inextricably contaminated with mercury. So it's not uncommon to see if selenium is high, mercury is high. So you can say you probably had a bad batch or maybe a bad few batches. But I wouldn't say that it's consistent across the board with any specific brand as much as you don't see that in foods that don't use synthetics, and you do see it in ones that do.
Okay. Interesting. So if somebody submitted an analysis and their pet came up really high on something, mercury or lead, then do you work with anyone, or do you give them people to work with to detox the dogs, or is it just dogs, or is it dogs, cats? Anybody?
We can't do cats yet. We can do dogs, horses, and humans. And actually, we've just recently incorporated humans, which has also been really interesting because it's not uncommon that the humans share a health issue with their pet. Right. So to be able to say, this might be environmental, maybe you should check yourself as well. I recently had one actually that the dog was very young and appeared to have some significant radiation exposure. And I was like, maybe you should check yourself too. So we haven't gotten that sample. I'm hoping to. But what was the question? I'm sorry.
No, I asked whether you could do all species. So pretty cool. And then if they do come up with something toxic, do you have people that they can work with? Do you have like a sort of a cookbook detox? Like if it's high in this, do this. If it's high in that, do that.
Well, so there is a veterinarian that does an analysis on the results that we get back, and we do submit that information for them in a final report. If they want some additional interaction with the vet, or if they want to do a consult with me, then they can do that separately. We are actually in the process of bringing on some additional vets because we're starting to tax our current vet a little bit too much.
I would think so.
So yeah, there are some options. And then, part of Solutions, actually, I have made an herbal blend line for several years now. And so we incorporated that herbal blend line into Solutions pet products. And one of the products that we have there is heavy metal detox. And then we also have a whole bunch of other things that are options. And of course, dietary advice and all, we try to accommodate. And if there's not something that we can provide, then we generally have a way to direct people, like, we think you probably should look here or there for more information.
Cool. Okay. So that brings us right into Solutions Pet Products. So this is a brand new pet food company, raw food company, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I know there's a huge product line. Is this going to be, or is it already complete meals or supplements only? What kind of stuff are we looking for?
Yeah, I'll just give you the rundown. So I have 3 different flavors of gelatin. So instead of doing a bone broth, there's a fish gelatin, which is more runny, and then a chicken gelatin and a pork gelatin. So those ones are scoopable. They all have a vitamin C source. Vitamin C actually helps to improve the utilization of some of the beneficial constituents that are in gelatin. So I don't know of any other brands that do a natural vitamin C source with their gelatin. It's also a really good flavor, enhancer, good for
does vitamin C remain stable when it's, in processing, freezing, transport, whatever that's being done?
Well, we're not putting it in as an isolate. It's not a supplement. It's actually from a fruit. So each one has a different fruit in there. Yep.
Okay.
And then we have 4 different milk products. So we've got tech sauce, which is milk with turmeric and ginger. And then we have a goat nog, so it's milk with duck eggs, cinnamon, and honey. And then we have 2 butter teas. So that's actually an ancient Tibetan recipe that is for optimizing nutrition and making individuals feel better in like high altitude, but obviously just feel better in general. So there are different herbal blends that have butters mixed into them.
And these are all made with goat milk and goat butter?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then we have complete diets. We're starting with chicken and beef and pork. And they're higher calorie, which makes it so that you can feed less. So it's more cost effective. All of them contain a gelatin, and the gelatin is matching the species of meat that's in there. All of the meats are from 100% regenerative farms. So we're heavily focused on, eco consciousness and soil health and just whole body health for not just the animals that are consuming the food, but the ingredient animals as well. We have a little bit of chia seed and okra in there. And then we're working with Natasha Lilly, Steve Brown, and Erica Gibbs with their rhizobiotics. And we intend to put some of the rhizobiotics into the food, and that's soil metabolites. So it's kind of similar to like a fecal transplant, but some research was done that actually showed there's potential dangers to fecal transplants because, of course, bacteria in feces, but they found that the beneficial aspect of a fecal transplant is the bacterial metabolites, which you can also gain with soil. So lots and lots of research on their end for doing that, and we're incorporating that into the diets, which are complete and balanced. And then we also have cheese.
Cheese.
We have a soft cheese recipe. There's 4 different flavors, and then the herbal blends.
And are these fermented foods or no?
Nope.
But they've got the soil-based probiotic, basically. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And so these are all frozen, I'm thinking. Okay. And are they shipped direct to consumer? Are they going through pet stores, through distributors? How are they going out?
The herbal blends we are doing either direct to retailers or smaller orders direct to consumers. And then with everything else, it will be through distributors and retailers.
Okay. And is this nationwide?
Yes.
Where is everything made?
Everything's made in Pennsylvania. So it is the farmers that were working with Answers and with Cure. With the injunction that was going on, everybody was kind of starting to disperse, and there wasn't a whole lot of hope of that being able to easily reconvene back into a viable company after everything is said and done. So a big part of Solutions existing is making sure that Cure can continue to exist after all of this legal silliness. And then, we don't have competing products. We have complementary products. So as Solutions, we have specifically avoided anything that's in that same injunction so that we can help to provide work and an outlet for the amazing, spectacular ingredients that are available there without actually violating that injunction. So nothing overlaps, and we think that they'll actually benefit each other if people want to use both later on.
Awesome. So are these products available now?
Not quite. People can order some of the herbs. The other stuff is either in production or starting production within the next week or so. So we think early July, we should have things rolling out into distributors.
Awesome. And so how difficult is it living in Colorado and running a business that's based in Pennsylvania?
Well, not being a morning person, that's not fun. But ultimately, there's over the years with Heroes, I cannot even tell you the number of people that have come to me and said, hey, we would love to private label a product for you. And I'm like, heck no, I don't want my name on your mistakes. I don't know what you're doing. So there are very, very few scenarios where I would feel comfortable like trusting the sourcing, trusting the production, trusting the quality control, just like being okay with somebody making something where I'm not personally interacting with it. This is just a super, super unique scenario where I fully trust a zillion percent the sourcing and the ability of all of these people to do a spectacular job that I'm sure is far better than I could do even. And it's just such a great group of people to work with. So I actually surprisingly feel really confident and comfortable with it. It's been great. And I just feel like kind of like I'm one of the many conductors of just helping to keep things moving forward, but I don't have to have concerns about it. And if I did have concerns, honestly, I just would not do it.
Right. Right. Wow. A lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah.
Well, you're still young, so you don't get to think about retirement yet.
Well,
although I'm old and I don't get to think about it either. So
I still feel like I'm at an age where the idea of retirement actually does not sound enjoyable. It's live hard, play hard. You work really hard, and then you just like vacation really, really hard in between for short bits, and then you go back and work really hard, and I'm happy with that.
Well, you're definitely hardworking and you're brilliant, and you have a really good handle on the pulse of what's going on, and you have sort of an analytical mind that just goes to places where you come up with things, and I'm like, wow. I think you like to research a little bit, and it's great. Takes all kinds of people to make things work, and like I said, I'm glad you're on our side. So Parsley Pet is available now.
Yep.
And is there a website for that?
ParsleyPet.com.
That's easy. And yep. Heroes Pet, is there a website for that?
Is heroespets.com, and that's HEROSPETS.com.
Okay. And Solutions?
Is solutionspetproducts.com.
See, I wouldn't even want the job of having to keep track of 3 websites. Like, I don't even want to keep track of one. I barely want to keep track of one Facebook page. So,
well, it's all about delegation. You got to have a team, and you got to feel really confident with them.
Well, let's see. You said you have an 11-year-old daughter, so she's reaching that point where the techie stuff. You can just say, "Here, honey, start posting fun things on Instagram." So
she actually has helped with some things, like on the Shopify page for Heroes. I couldn't figure out how to edit these little images for one line, and I was frustrated with it. And she's like, well, I can do it. And she just took my phone and did like 70 images and just handed it back to me. To this day, I have no idea how she did it. And she was like 9. Like, well, I'm not going to argue. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll give you a job. And, actually, I think I started my daughter Gwen when I had the vet clinics. I think she was about 7 when we put her on the front desk. And I'll never forget my business partner. He owned a small animal clinic, and then we bought Clayton Animal Hospital together. I was actually the minority partner at the time. And so, after school, what was I going to do with my kids? So I would pick them up from school, and they would come to the clinic and hang out. And I was like, well, if you're going to be here, you're going to work. And so I put Gwen on the front desk, and my business partner called down to our office, and Gwen answered the phone. Clayton Veterinary Associates, this is Gwen speaking. How may I help you? And he's like, I need to speak to Dr. Morgan. And I get on the phone. He goes, when did we hire a Gwen? I said, that's my daughter. He goes, isn't she like 7? I said, He said, wow, she just answers the phone better than most of our receptionists that have been here for years. So she was rooked into having to work like every summer forever. So your daughter it's like, it's good help.
Yeah, and even away from the store, like I've heard of her sometimes talking to her friends' parents, and she's like, what do you feed your dog? Oh, you shouldn't feed that. She starts educating them about the industry.
Yeah, I can't wait till my granddaughter starts doing that. Right now, she's not even quite 2, but she loves to go to the warehouse and rearrange the shelves because she's seen us, when we're picking and pulling for packing and stuff, and she sees us do it. So she'll get her little basket and she'll go around and she'll collect a bunch of stuff, and we're like, oh my God. But, in a couple years, that's going to come in real handy.
Yes, it is. And you just got to start pointing out little things on the labels.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Now, this is what we look for on this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. She'll be at school educating everybody too. I'll never forget Gwen. I think it was like the first day of 4th grade, maybe it's 3rd or 4th grade. And they had to write their little essay of what they did over the summer. So Gwen wrote an essay about giving a blood transfusion to a kitten. And I got called into the school and the teacher said, your daughter tells tall tales. And she needs to learn the difference between truth and fiction. And I said, why? And they said, well, she wrote her story about she gave a blood transfusion to a kitten. And I'm sure that didn't happen. I said, actually, it did. I gave her directions. I gave her a stopwatch. I gave her, I said, this is how you do it. And she did it. Did a great job. And so after that, the teacher was like, okay, this kid doesn't have the same things to do after school as everybody else.
That's so great.
So yeah, fun and games. Anyway, Chelsea, I wish you the best of luck with everything. Definitely keep us posted when these products hit the shelf. We'll make a big announcement if you let us know. And I think some people have kind of heard about it through the grapevine and they're getting excited. And I do get messages a few times a week. When is this going to come out? When is this going to be available? So
it's close.
Yeah, we will be more than happy to keep people informed as long as you keep us informed. So I hope you feel better soon. And back to work, young lady.
I'm doing it. Headed now. I got a long list.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. We wish you the best success with everything.
Thank you.